The honourable member for Fadden is now given the call.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to respond to the Honourable Minister of Defence's fifth update to the House. He said in his March update, the first of the 5 this year, that he would seek to make timely, relevant responses on combat operations in Afghanistan, and to his credit, he has kept his word. I note the machinations of this morning and the loss of Speaker Jenkins, and I certainly echo the Leader of the Opposition's words that whilst having been tossed out 9 times in this parliament, I'm sure none of which are my fault, Speaker Jenkins has been a speaker that the House has widely regarded and widely respected, and I'm sure he will be missed, certainly on the Sunday television programs on the reruns. But I rise the 5th time this year to respond to the Minister for Defence, and of course having responded recently on Tuesday to the Prime Minister's update with respect to combat operations in Afghanistan. I thank the Minister for the opportunity to respond to his comments. I note the time the Minister spent with respect to transition and the way transition is going. The Coalition, of course, offers wide, deep and lasting bipartisan support to combat operations in Afghanistan. The bipartisan support is not conditional, except on the national interest. Whilst bipartisan support is given freely and given widely with great trust, we do acknowledge it's not a blank cheque. We do expect to be kept updated both publicly within the means of the House and, of course, privately within the statutes of the House Representatives, and I acknowledge the Minister does both of those to his enduring credit. The Lisbon Treaty, of course, set the transition date for 2014, a date the Coalition accepts and acknowledges. The government, to their credit, has also reinforced this by making it clear that any withdrawal from Afghanistan will be metrics-based and based on a sound judgment at a command level. We believe the government continues to hold to that account, noting the Minister's comments on transition, that we've now moved to a stage of mobile mentoring teams, away from establishment of 30 footprints in forward operating bases and patrol bases, to manning somewhat of a number of 11, with the Minister's hope that by the end of next year to perhaps have permanent manning down to 4 patrol bases, with the extensive use of the mobile mentoring teams to make up for the differences that the reduced footprint of Australian soldiers takes. I note the Minister's comments that the transition is going well, that in terms of stability, in terms of economics, in terms of infrastructure and construction, things continue to improve. And I've said previously, from my last of 3 visits to Afghanistan, that the forward patrol base in the Mirabad Valley at the Upper Reaches, 6 kilometres outside of Tarin Kowt, where October 2010, the Leader of the Opposition and I, in Tarin Kowt, a massive firefight was underway to actually capture the ridgeline above the upper reaches of the Mirabad Valley. Then 6 or 7 months later, in fact August of the year, to go back to that patrol base, to sit down with the leaders of the community, including a number of former Mujahideen fighters, in a traditional shura for an hour and a half. The issue of security, the issue of defence, the issue of insurgency wasn't raised a single time in that hour and a half. Not a single time. Yet 6 months before, there was a brutal firefight on that ridgeline to capture the area. 6 months later, such was the degree of security that arrived that in that 1.5 hours of discussion, the issues of when is the road coming to the Mirabad Valley? Thank you for the mosque. When are we looking at replacement crops for poppies? How are we dealing with economic activity? When is the school replacement going in? How is the issue of markets being addressed? There is no greater example of the transition within combat operations to economic activity than in the Masarai patrol base, 7 kilometres outside of Tarin Kowt in the Mirabad Valley. It speaks testimony and adds value and weight to the Minister's words that transition is actually moving sensibly and moving appropriately. With respect to the Minister's announcement, the Coalition supports the commencement of transfer of detainees to the Afghan National Directorate of Security, or the NDS. It is fundamental that the NDS within Uruzgan is capable, is appropriate, has enough staff and resources, and has the proper processes to enable them to effectively take detainees, to prosecute information available to them, to treat them humanely within the rules presently of armed conflict, and then within a civil society law, and then of course release them or move them through to a court process. The Minister has provided a range of assurances that the Afghan National Director of Security is operating within those norms, that the investigation the Minister alluded to has shown that the Uruzgan facility, that no non-compliance was shown. The Coalition accepts that and supports the commencement of the transfer of detainees. We also support the ability to hold detainees increasing from 96 hours to 10 days, which is in line with our ISAF partners. Over the previous 4 responses I've made to the Minister in March, May, July and October, I've been calling consistently on a number of things to occur. For the ability to hold detainees to be widened from 96 hours to the full 10 days in line with our ISAF partners. The Minister now, to his credit, has agreed and given instruction for that to occur. That will allow a whole range of options for the military to use. It's important in armed conflict, which is ostensibly a battle of wills, that we provide our military with the full gambit of combat power and the full gambit to achieve effects on the battlefield. And one of the major ways to achieve an effect on the battlefield is the full and proper prosecution of information and indeed processing that into intelligence. It is impossible, and has been impossible, to fully prosecute that battlefield effect with only holding detainees for 96 hours and in that only allowing a limited degree of tactical questioning. In line with that, the Coalition supports the Ministers moving towards setting up a full PIC, a primary interrogation centre, which allows the full prosecution of information from detainees. Likewise, the Coalition also supports the full use of our detainee facility. The Commonwealth has spent $5 million on a state-of-the-art, ostensibly interrogation facility, and we haven't used its full gamut of capability now for 12 months. With the announcement by the Minister that a full interrogation capability will be sent to Afghanistan, it will allow us to fully prosecute that information effect on the battlefield. Now, I join the Minister in acknowledging that some people may have concerns, especially around the term interrogation and what it actually means. I note the member for Eden Monero here, who was in Iraq, of course, during the Abu Ghraib affair and played a significant role in actually bringing a range of sanity to what was otherwise an insane situation. And he and I both know, having served operationally overseas, that perception can tend to be a long way away from the fact. So let me assure people that interrogation is as much an art as a science, but it is an incredibly disciplined art and a disciplined science. We're talking about a primary interrogation centre that includes full medical support, full psychological support, substantially trained interrogators. Everything is actually captured on CCTVs. There is full access for the Red Cross and other humanitarian organisations. And I can speak with some authority on the issue of interrogation, actually being a trained military interrogator. Probably the only one the House has had for a while, Mr Deputy Speaker, or perhaps ever. But as a trained interrogator, I know patently well what's involved in the art and science of interrogation, how we deploy it and what we do with it. I'll also say to the Minister opposite, I've actually even spent 24 quality hours in one of our Australian interrogation centres. It's very hard to be an interrogator unless you've undergone the process of being interrogated to know how both sides of the fence actually works. So with that experience in my former military days, and I'm looking across at the member for Eden Monero, a former colonel in the military who has great experience in this matter as well, I can say with some authority that the Minister's decision, based on 12 months, I suggest, of deliberation and making sure that things will work appropriately, but the decision to employ the full gamut of interrogation capabilities is sound and it is sensible. It'll be managed, it'll be monitored. I believe the Minister has deployed a one-star general within theatre to manage the whole detainee management, so there is tremendous oversight. But the ability now to have a full range of interrogators under a substantially or suitably senior officer, all videotaped, all managed, every word, every action accountable, will finally allow Australian forces to fully prosecute all detainees, to seek out through tactical questioning the information they may hold, the value it may have, and then to determine what is more appropriate for which detainees to be held for longer periods of time for the full extraction of information that may be of worth and may be of value. So for those who hear interrogation and immediately picture Abu Ghraib, can I say with great confidence and experience in the matter that could not be further from the truth with what an interrogation capability brings to the fore. We're talking about suitably trained intelligence corps officers, and as we know, the Intelligence Corps of the Australian Army is one of the finest corps, one of the most professional corps, and will do the nation proud in terms of its use of interrogation and where it's going. I note the Minister has told of 1,074 detainees from the 1st of August 2010 to the 18th of November 2011. That is an enormous number of people captured on the battlefield, an enormous number. Not only captured but detained at checkpoints, detained because of information that had been gathered, people that had been detained by special forces because they were persons of interest. But 1,074 is an enormous number of people that then need to be tactically questioned, their information, their alibis, their equipment, what they have on them to be assessed for its intelligence professional, and then for decisions to be made as to what to do with them. With that number of people coming through a detainee management system, it is crucial that, one, we have a viable NDS, which we now do. The Minister's assured the House, and 154 have been passed through to the NDS or indeed to US forces, which still leads over 900 people passing through the Australian system, not going to NDS or to the US, that the Australian system is either releasing or now has the opportunity to pass through to a primary interrogation centre for the further extraction of valuable information. I think we can all be assured that our ISAF partners will be incredibly pleased with the decision that has been made. Whilst we look at the numbers of a number of recaptures of people, that is inevitable within a theatre of combat operations. Hopefully, with now the implementation of the PIC, we'll see the number of recapturing and redetaining substantially reduce as we can more formally address the information or the issue of information extraction. I note the Minister has said that of the 30 or 40 allegations that have been fully investigated, for those who've actually made complaints within our detainee facility, none have had any base to them. And I suggest with some confidence, probably none ever will. I think it's axiomatic that those detained in the battlefield, especially knowing full well we're a first world nation, that we operate within the rule of law, that we are a nation that is accountable, that detainee numbers will be reported to the people within Parliament, that each investigation will have suitable oversight. Detainees are well aware of the first world rights that they enjoy within our first world facility, noting that Taliban would never afford us even a fourth world right, or indeed any of our soldiers such rights. Having said that, we are better than that as a nation. We are better than who they are and what they do in terms of their actions. So it's important we continue to thoroughly investigate each allegation as it arrives, noting that those to date have had no base. We will continue to investigate and we will continue to show the Afghan authorities, as well as the non-government sector within Afghanistan, that we follow complaints to the letter of the law. And it's important now soldiers, sailors and airmen also understand that we will continue to follow those processes where we go. I can only assume the Minister will continue next year his tradition this year of updating the House at least every quarter. I see a nod from the Minister to ensure the Parliament is fully abreast of where things are going in Afghanistan. The next year will be a decisive year in terms of combat operations. This year, over the last winter leading in, the Taliban have not regained any of the losses through this or through the last fighting season leading into the next. They have not regained any of the initiatives. And as the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, prepares from MTF3 to transition across to MTF4 based on the 8th 9th Battalion over the Christmas period, it is my expectation from looking at what our soldiers, sailors and airmen have done to date, that initiative will not be resumed by the Taliban again. Next year we'll see a transitioning down from more patrol bases to mobile mentoring teams. It will see the further destruction of the intelligence, the communications and the command elements of the Taliban and the further economic ingrainment within the community. Let's not underestimate the value of economic activity or the work the Provincial Reconstruction Team is doing. When the sealed road from Chora to Tarin Kowt went in, the price of palm oil in Chora, that used to be 7 times that in Tarin Kowt, dropped to only 2 times. That type of productivity improvement, using the language we'd use in Parliament, but that type of economic improvement is fundamental to the lives of people. And whilst many of the people will question the legitimacy of the government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Giroa, it is incredibly difficult to actually say that the ISAF forces aren't delivering value when suddenly the price of palm oil has dropped from 7 times down to 2 times. It is a tangible reminder of the value of what we're doing in theatre. I thank the Minister again for his update to the House. He enjoys, or the government enjoys, full coalition support in the prosecution of combat operations. The coalition supports the Minister's announcements on the commencement of transfer of detainees to NDS, the ability to hold from 96 hours to 10 days. We support the implementation of the PIC and the full use of the detainee facility, and I thank the Minister for his update to the House.